Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Save Rome of the West. You are joined by Brody Hale and Tony Kozik. We have some interesting news to break to you at this time. Last week, there were 7 parishes that got suspension notices on their appeal process. And then last night, an eighth one was added to that list. That being said, we sent out 4 appeals to Rome ourselves and also had direct knowledge of 2 other parishes that were also sent directly to Rome as opposed to sending to the Archdiocese first. Now, we did send a letter to the Archdiocese after the fact to let them know that we, in fact, did send to Rome and to make them aware that the nuncio had received our appeal. But the interesting thing to note is that I received news back from the nuncio that 5 of the 8 now decrees have not been received by the nuncio.
So
So,
let's just back up, if we
okay,
could, because you've
absolutely.
thrown a lot out in the last few moments and it's all been very good. But I just want to sort of unpack all of that because I think and Jason set it up very, very well, but I want to unpack everything that he just said. So what we're talking about here are appeals that were filed against the decrees that were issued to eliminate parishes in the Archdiocese of St. Louis. So let's just back up and remember that over Pentecost weekend, a total of 50 parishes, 50, learned that they would be impacted by the All Things New process, which would lead to the closure of, of parishes in the Archdiocese of St. Louis, and that there would be, as a result of that process, a net loss of 45 parishes. There are a number of parishes that will be sort of made to go through another round of being voted off the island, which will leave 5 of them standing. So even though 50 will be impacted, 5 will survive. We just don't know which 5. So there were a number of appeals filed under canon law against those decisions to close parishes. And we learned last week that the Archdiocese, in its announcement, would be suspending the closures of those parishes that actually took appeals to Rome. And that means that during the course of the process, when those appeals will be considered, the closure of those parishes will not occur. They will remain as parishes as if nothing was happening until the appeals are over. That's something that Archbishop Rosansky chose to do. They announced, as I say, the Archdiocese announced last week that they would be suspending the closure of all the parishes that had filed appeals to Rome. And what Jason is saying is that we knew last week of at least 6 parishes that had sent appeals to Rome that had not received suspensions. Jason called the Apostolic Nunciature in Washington, D.C., the office of the Pope's ambassador to the United States. He learned from them that they had not even received the appeals from 5 of those parishes because the Archdiocese had not forwarded them along yet. And the Archbishop is claiming that he has, well, the Archdiocese seems to be claiming, I'll say it that way, that they have the total universe of parishes that suspended or that filed appeals to Rome, whereas the nunciature is saying, wait a moment, we've got 6 that you submitted. We don't have 5 that they're claiming were submitted. So there's a lot of stuff happening here that does not jive totally with the reality of the situation. So what we're going to do during the course of this podcast is we're going to put up all of the descriptive materials to illustrate what all has happened here and what is counted, what isn't counted, and how that's been counted. And just to also be clear in closing, when we say we submitted 4, what we mean is we were requested by 4 groups of individuals who, for various reasons, be it mobility issues or whatever, have difficulty getting to the post office. We were requested to submit their appeals to the post office for them. They weren't brought by Save Rome of the West. And I know that may be for some people getting into the weeds, but we just want to be very clear on that because we hope that this podcast is being watched by certain individuals, within archdiocesan leadership, et cetera, who may not be terribly thrilled with what all it is that we are doing, but we want to make it clear that what has been done on our end is completely comporting with what canon law required. So, Jason, I'll hand it back over to you. I just wanted to sort of put those clarifiers and descriptors on what you had said.
Okay, so what I'm bringing on the screen right now is the email itself that I had sent to the nuncio. Actually, I've got the wrong one up. That's the one that I sent to the archdiocese, stating that, and I'll show that's the letter that I had sent the archdiocese. Give me one sec here. Here we go. So this morning I asked for an update, but I'm gonna start at the very beginning of the email chain so you can kind of see what's going on here.
Make that a little larger, Jason.
I don't know how to make it any larger.
Okay.
I think I'm at full screen at the moment.
Okay.
So anyway, I'll just go ahead and read it in case it is too small for people to see. And now we're going to find a way to actually download this into a PDF that we're going to attach to this podcast so that people can see the email chain itself. But essentially the message I sent to them was that I have been assisting parishes in getting appeals to your office on denials from the Archdiocese of St. Louis that have been denied. The Archdiocese has suspended 7 as a result of appeals that have been sent. However, I am aware of 6 additional parishes that should be in your hands. Could you please confirm receipt of these parishes and also advise as to how we can get suspensions issued on these other 6? The parishes are as follows: St. Barnabas and O'Fallon, St. Paul and Berger, St. Bernadette and Limay, St. Elizabeth, Mother of John the Baptist in St. Louis, St. John Paul II in St. Louis, and Saints Philip and James in St. Genevieve. We are requesting the same suspension be issued for these that were issued for St. Angelo Merici in Florissant, St. Catherine of Alexandria in Kaufman, St. Francis of Assisi in Luberon, St. Martin of Tours in Limay, St. Matthew the Apostle in St. Louis, St. Richard in Creve Coeur, and St. Roch in St. Louis. And so then they responded back. Here it shows, good afternoon. We have received majority of these letters on different days, and they are on the way to Rome, but have not received from 5 parishes yet, and they are St. Catherine of Alexandria in Kaufman, St. Francis of Assisi in Luberon, St. Matthew the Apostle in St. Louis, St. Richard in Creve Coeur, and St. Roch in St. Louis. I have been talking to Channel 5 about this because they had done some interviews with me earlier last week, or maybe it was this week, about the suspensions and things that have been going on in respect to that. And they wanted me to double check to see if maybe there was like a cross in the stream as far as the messages being received. So I sent another message to them this morning, asking them, let's see if I can actually pull that message up, just asking the status of those. Said, can you provide an update to whether the 5 you had not received as of last week, if they were received, and if not, or if any other St. Louis appeals came in? And so they said, as of 10:30 this morning, we did not receive those 5. So it's interesting that these suspension notices haven't even been received by the nuncio, but the archdiocese is claiming to the news source that I have that they actually have been sent directly to Rome, and that Rome is on vacation or on some sort of hiatus for the next 2 weeks, and it might be early September before they hear from Rome, and at that point they may suspend these other 6. And it was not given a straight answer as to what exactly was going on there. Now, I did send, like I said earlier, I did send a letter to the archdiocese and copied the nuncio on that, and I'm going to share that with you now. Let's see, here it is. Can you see this now, Tony? Tony, is the note up on the screen? Okay, good.
Not up.
All right, so it says, Your Excellency, as Save Rome of the West, we have been assisting parishioners submit appeals to the Apostolic See regarding your decrees issued on May 27th. The assistance includes monitoring progress of the appeals. Upon review, we have identified 2 issues with the processing of the appeals. On July 31st, you published a list of 7 decrees that had been suspended due to the appeals being submitted to the Apostolic See as follows: St. Angela Merici, St. Catherine of Alexandria, St. Francis of Assisi, St. Martin of Tours, St. Matthew the Apostle, St. Richard, and St. Roch. Upon review, we have identified that 6 additional appeals have been submitted directly to the Apostolic See by the parishes. We believe that these parishes should also be included to the suspension list of the July 31st, 2023. And those are St. Barnabas, St. Paul, St. Bernadette, St. Mother Elizabeth, Mother of John the Baptist, St. John Paul II, Saints Philip and James, and St. Genevieve. Additionally, we have contacted the Apostolic Nunciature on August 2nd to confirm that the above appeals have been submitted to them. The response from the Apostolic Nuncio is that they received all of the above identified appeals which they have sent to Rome, except for the 5 parishes shown below: St. Catherine of Alexandria, St. Francis of Assisi, St. Matthew the Apostle, St. Richard, and St. Roch. Our understanding that the above 5 appeals were submitted directly to the Archdiocese for submittal to the Apostolic See. We identified these actions to correct the issues above. The Archdiocese needs to submit the 5 appeals to the Apostolic See. And secondly, the Archdiocese needs to update the July 31st suspension list to include the 6 additional appeals that have been submitted and processed by the Apostolic Nunciature. Asking your Excellency's blessing as we are yours. And then I signed off on it. So that is kind of the crux of all of the.
Now, if I could just ask a question, Jason, for the benefit of our listening and viewing audience right now.
Yeah.
How was it that you learned of the addition of Our Lady of Sorrows to the list? As you said, it was added last evening.
From another media source that that
has that been dropped? Has that been made public?
Yes, it's on the Archdiocesan website that they added as of 1 o'clock this morning. 1 a.m. this morning. I don't know. There's a news story in the St. Louis Review about it as well.
That's been added.
Which, Our Lady of Sorrows is now part of that list, and whether or not the Apostolic Nunciature has that one or not, I would
no way to know.
Probably not, since I haven't asked them, and they didn't actually list all of the parishes that they have.
No, they didn't list the ones they have, sure, but that wasn't.
But they did list, 5 of those 7 that they hadn't. Like, I gave them the list of the 7, so
right,
they knew the parishes that I was inquiring about. So yeah, So
let's just review where we are, and then I want to just get into the weeds again for a bit to explain to the viewers why we're here.
Yep.
We've got a situation where, remember when we were talking during the 2016 and the 2020 election, when we were talking, well, who's going to win this state? Who's going to win that state? And they always talked about the universe of ballots. We don't know what the universe of uncounted ballots is. That means like where the ballots are that haven't been uncounted and how many there are. What we don't know right now is the universe of parishes that filed appeals to Rome. We don't know what that universe consists of. We don't know how many are out there. We don't know who is out there. In all honesty, if you filed an appeal to Rome, or if you're aware of somebody that did and they're not on this list, or they're not part of the 14 that we're bringing up here tonight, please contact us, because we'd like to know who is and isn't on this list for the benefit of everybody. To see if there's anybody else that should have been getting a suspension of their closure while the appeal is considered that hasn't even been granted one. So we don't know what the universe of parishes is this evening. We do know that it's at least 14. And we know that because the Archdiocese has now stated that they know of 8 that went to Rome, or that should have gone to Rome, may have or may not have, but that they're crediting as having appealed to Rome. And we know of 6. And I will swear upon any book, the Holy Bible, if I had one in front of me, that we are quite serious when we say to you that we put those appeals together and we sent them to the nunciature. Now, why did we do that? Because this is the second piece of what we're involved in right now, is where these appeals are going. You can't send an appeal directly to the Congregation for the Clergy if you are a layperson. It's just not done. I know that there's an address where you can write Pope Francis and all of that, and I'm not trying to dissuade people from doing that. But let's be very honest about this. The Pope gets millions upon millions upon millions upon millions upon millions of letters a year. They're not all read by him. They're generally read by officials of the Holy See, priests, some of them assigned to sort of like desk duty in that respect. You know, each department of the Curia has officials that are called mignotantes. They're sort of lower ranking officials who handle, you know, all sorts of things like correspondence and office work and what have you. And you can be a priest and do that for the entirety of your career. You know, that can be what you end up doing if you get into the service of the Holy See. So somebody's going to read stuff, but if it's an official correspondence or legal proceeding or something along those lines, it has to be sent through proper channels. Now, since I have been involved in these cases since 2004, I was not in any way, shape, or form a leader of the effort to save churches or parishes in Boston, Massachusetts. I was not leading that, but I was involved enough to know of all of the different pieces that went on and how it was done and all of that. And one of the first things that we had to do when we were trying to appeal stuff in Boston to Rome was figure out how to do it. And it was made very clear to me in 2004 that the way one does this, if one is a layperson, is one takes the appeal that they've written and supporting materials, and one makes 2 copies of those materials, the appeal, etc. One seals one in one envelope, and one places that sealed envelope plus another copy of the materials along with a cover letter into a second envelope, a bigger envelope, and that all gets sealed and addressed to the Apostolic Nunciature in Washington, D.C. The Apostolic Nunciature, as I said earlier, is the Pope's ambassador's office in the U.S. Every country that has diplomatic relations with the Holy See has one, just like any country that has diplomatic relations with the United States has an ambassador's office. And when the nunciature gets this material, okay, they open the letter, they open the envelope, they read the cover letter, and they say, they see in the cover letter, there's a package of material here. It's supposed to go to the congregation, or now the dicastery for the clergy after Pope Francis renamed it, and they want it sent over in the diplomatic pouch. Okay, we'll do that. So what the diplomatic pouch is this private mail service that exists between embassies and their home countries. So the US has a diplomatic pouch also. Every so often, whether it's a week, 2 weeks, a month, I don't know what our schedule is or what the Vatican schedule is, everything that an embassy has received, which is considered to be official correspondence by the ambassador, or in this case, the nuncio, which is his title, gets loaded into crates or boxes or whatever, and it's sent back through a private mail service, and it's called the diplomatic pouch. Okay? It's subject to diplomatic security. It's not like something that goes through the post office. It's sent through special channels it goes over. It's not like a pouch that you zip up. It's simply boxes and crates and bags of mail that are treated as being official privileged correspondence, and they're sent through those proper channels. When you communicate in a legal proceeding with the Holy See, you're supposed to send things through an official channel. So in this case, to the nunciature, they take the sealed envelope with your stuff out. It has the address you want it sent to on it. You don't have to put postage. And then they put it in the diplomatic pouch and it gets sent over. That's how, for the last 19 years that I've worked on these matters, stuff goes to Rome, if you want it to be officially considered. And if you send a letter to the dicastery for the clergy and you send it directly, it's virtually impossible that it will ever be opened or read or even processed. If they don't throw it away, they'll send it back to you. That's simply how it's done. That is what I was told 19 years ago by various canon lawyers and other priests who would have known. I am quite confident in how this has been handled. I've handled hundreds upon hundreds of these matters in the last 19 years. at least close to 100 since 2021. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Let me ask you this. So,
Yes.
we sent ours to the apostolic see like we were supposed to the nunciature.
Yeah.
The archdiocese is making the claim that they have sent 5 of these, all 7 of these directly to Rome. So is there a way that they could bypass the nunciature to go?
Well, let's just first of all parse their statement. Let's just first of all break their statement down. Okay. So when we approached the nunciature initially about all these appeals, they made it clear that they have received 2 of these themselves, 2 of the 7 the archdiocese cited. I don't do it by process of elimination, sir. Which 2 would they have received off of that list?
The 2 out of the 7 were St. Angela Merici and St. Martin of Tours, which I have contact with both of those parishes and was told that they notified the archdiocese as well as sent the package themselves like we did.
They sent their, and that was the other thing. We know from them that they did not send their package to the archdiocese. It was sent to the nunciature. How come they got submitted? That's the other thing. So they didn't even send to the archdiocese. I'll handle that in a second. I have no idea what the archdiocese is doing. We're in literally the twilight zone here when it comes to canonical procedure. This is so far off the rails. The railroad's about 1,000 miles in the other direction, and I don't know how we got here. That's about all I can say. So what would have happened would have been eventually, the archdiocese is made aware, hey, you've got a case against this church. You need to respond. The nuncio should have informed the when the nuncio receives something like that, they're going to tell the archdiocese. It's simply how it's done. If you send some sort of official correspondence about something like this, the archdiocese is made aware. I know of this for a fact, based on priests and canon lawyers who I've been speaking to for nearly 20 years. This is something I learned as far back as 2006. When you send something off to the nunciature, they inform the diocese of what they're dealing with. So the diocese, unless something is completely broken down somewhere along the line, I would be shocked if someone could prove to me that the Archdiocese of St. Louis is not aware of the fact that the nunciature received the 6 parish appeals that we're talking about in question. As to what they did with the 5 they have, I have absolutely no idea. I have no idea how they would have gotten them over there if the dicastery for the clergy is accepting material outside of the diplomatic pouch. If a bishop sends it, that's a possibility. I've never known anyone to do this in the 19 years that I've been working on these matters. If that's something the archdiocese has done, okay. But I have no way of knowing whether they could actually pull that off. Did they send some priest who had business in Rome over with these things in his briefcase to drop over in person? That's possible too. I know this because I was in Rome once for a conference and I dropped documents off at the dicastery for the clergy in person. I don't know. I don't know what they did with the materials. I don't know what they did. I have absolutely no idea what was done with the appeals in those 5 cases.
Right.
And that's something I'd love for the archdiocese to clarify, simply to put the minds of the parishioners who filed the stuff, those cases, at ease. What did you do with them? How did you get them to Rome? Because this is not generally what is done. We personally advised, based on my nearly 2 decades of experience in this arena, those 6 groups with which we were working to send their materials through the nunciature. We did that for 2 reasons. Look, I want to think the best of all of our church leaders. I truly do. But in a situation where there is an adversarial relationship between parties, the last thing I would advise as a civil attorney my client to do, and they were not my civil clients, let's be clear, just so that we're clear on that. But if they were, the last thing I would have advised them to do was to send their materials that they needed to get before a judge to the opposing counsel to let him do it. Okay, that would be like sending my lawsuit to the guy that I'm suing and asking him to make sure it gets to the court. Okay, not something I would do. I don't know where Archbishop Rosansky sent this stuff. I pray that he sent it to Rome. I have no reason to believe that he's lying, but I don't have any idea how he did it. Secondly, I wouldn't send someone information and ask them to get it to the judge when they would have the opportunity to pick through the information potentially. And I'm not saying the Archdiocese did this. I'm simply saying it could happen. You know, what's to stop somebody from picking the information out that's most detrimental and destructive to them and sending the rest of it over to Rome? How can you be certain when you are adversarially postured against someone else that they're going to send the material that could be most problematic for them onto the judge or the jury or whomever? You can't. It defies logic. And especially with all of that being said, and with the procedure being what it is as to how this stuff should get over to Rome, we told the six groups we were working with that's what they needed to do, to send it to the nunciature and to have them put it in the diplomatic pouch. And after they put it in the diplomatic pouch, it would be sent over to the dicastery for the clergy. So I was rather surprised to see Archbishop Rosansky even put in his letters that stuff should be sent to him if there was going to be an appeal. I was like, no, that's not how it works. There's only one other ordinary in this country that I've ever seen ever propose something like this, and that was Cardinal Blaise Cupich of Chicago back in 2016. And he was politely made aware in that case that no, that's not how it's going to work. This is the procedure. This is what we're doing. That was the case of St. Adalbert and Pilsen. I would call that Adalbert round 1, which was the Adalbert Parish appeal. That's been in the news a lot this week. We won't go there, but Julie Sawicki, who's a very dear friend of Save Rome of the West, has just had a really tough week, as have all of the parishioners of St. Adalbert in Chicago, and I would ask you to keep them in your prayers. But I would ask everyone to keep them in their prayers. But the long and the short of it is, that's the only other time I've seen somebody who is a diocesan ordinary, meaning the bishop or archbishop of a diocese, suggest that material should be sent by them for an appeal over to Rome. It's just not done. Or let me say this, I've worked in a lot of different cases in a lot of different dioceses, and those are the only 2 times I've seen it done. So I don't know what's happening in St. Louis, but as I said, we're about 1,000 miles from the railroad tracks. I don't know how we got here, and I don't know how we get back on the tracks. So that's the long and short of it.
Yeah. Tony, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions regarding actually exactly what Brody questioned. First of all, Jason, could we ask the nuncio if they have informed the archdiocese of all these appeals?
That question was actually posed to them over the phone. So I don't have written confirmation of that. But they, in fact, said that they had not talked to the archdiocese in respect to...
I don't understand that.
They said that there was no communication made to the directly back to the archdiocese, making them aware of the appeals that are going into the...
And that's another point that I don't understand. There should have been.
Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they?
I don't know. That's a great question, and they said that that's not part of their process, is what I was told.
Oh, good grief! That's not what I was told, and I was told that 17 years ago, unless they've amended their process. And that was told to me. That was conveyed to me from someone who spoke with a judicial vicar of a diocese that was not too happy that I was fighting them. That was with regard to my own church, St. Francis of Assisi in Lee, Massachusetts, where I learned that they communicate with a diocese when they get something like this.
Okay, the other question I would have also would be, could we ask could we ask the nuncio if there is another route for the archdiocese to submit their information directly to Rome?
That I could request that email. I mean, I can easily send that to them to just to see what their response would be.
Yeah, because
it might be the best. It might be the best route at this point because it doesn't seem like we're getting direct answers as to how things are being transpired and how things are happening right at the moment. I just want the truth out. Honestly, that's
exactly. That's what I like to go back to the other one of all the ones that the nuncio has received. I would ask them, why haven't they, told the archdiocese exactly the appeals that are there, and if not, we'd ask that they do that.
Right.
Well,
yeah. And we
can certainly talk to that. I think we should probably cover some of these process questions off air, but because we are being seen by goodness only knows how many people right now, and this is a bit of strategic stuff. But I hear you, Tony. Those are good questions. Those are good questions. It's not that I'm looking to try and do anything in the shadows, everybody. It's just there's a lot of considerations to work through here. But these are good questions. I am surprised the nunciature told you that they haven't communicated. Right. That doesn't make any sense to me. But I mean, I'm not doubting them. I'm not doubting them.
No, I had no reason to believe that it was not, because the brother that basically handled this aspect of processing said that he in fact did see these appeals, and he in fact did put them in the pouch to send to Rome. But he said, beyond that we would need to actually speak with a canon lawyer as far as the suspensions piece were concerned, and what the process was as far as what canon law would say about suspensions if there were certain.
And let me be very, very clear, and I don't know if Mitch understands this or not, and you know what, maybe somebody could say, well, you're shooting yourself in the foot by saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway, because he's already suspended 8, and if he doesn't suspend these 6, he's going to look bad regardless of any way you slice it. He was under no obligation to suspend these decrees. This was not something he was required to do. He chose to do this. This was his choice.
Right.
He did not have to suspend these decrees during the consideration of these appeals. It's not required that an ordinary suspend parish closures while appeals are being considered. That's not required at all. And in all honesty, I'm shocked that it was done. This is only the second diocese in my 19 years of work on these matters that I have ever seen where appeals to Rome have resulted in the suspension of parish closures while the appeals are considered. It's something that I always ask for, that I always encourage groups to ask for, but this is only the second instance where I've seen it done. The first, because I want everybody to be able to know what I'm talking about, was under the late Bishop Edward Kimmick of the Diocese of Buffalo back in 2007 and in 2008 in 3 cases that I'm aware of, those being the cases of St. Adalbert in Buffalo, the Basilica of St. Adalbert in Buffalo, St. Anne in Buffalo, and St. Mary in Lockport, Lockport. There may have been others, but those are the 3 that I'm aware of that Bishop Kimmick suspended, may he rest in peace, during his time as Ordinary of Buffalo. So I was exceedingly and extremely surprised when Archbishop Rosansky granted these suspensions. What boils my blood, for the sake of all of those Catholics impacted by this, is that we see some getting suspensions and some not getting suspensions. We don't know where the 5 appeals are, and there seems to be no rhyme or reason to any of this.
Right, and that's the thing. I mean, if you're going to suspend those 8, why not the other 6? What's keeping you from doing that? And to say that you don't have proof, we've sent you proof. We've sent you the everything.
We sent you proof.
Everything that you need to know to that that we've done exactly what's supposed to have been done.
Right.
I that is fair and just is really kind of what I'm looking at from that angle, of this. So, but this is why we came live tonight. was to, basically bring this to everyone's attention. Hopefully, some other sources pick up on this and make it a little bit more broader public knowledge, because I know that we only have a limited reach at this point in time as to who doesn't see this. But this at least puts the word out that this had happened. Any closing thoughts, Tony?
No, I don't have any other thoughts.
Brody, what about you?
No, I've got nothing, and I'm just look. This is just a question of fairness and justice. And if Archbishop Brzezinski does do the right thing here and suspends these other 6, plus any others that are in the pipeline that none of us are aware of, I will thank him. I think all 3 of us would. Am I correct with that?
Well, we lost one of the 3.
What happened to Tony?
I don't know. He could have dropped off. I'm not sure.
All right, we'll figure it out. But anyway, no, I will. But no, we just want the right thing to be done.
Absolutely, and that truly is it. I mean, it comes down to what's fair and just. What's ethical. What's the most ethical thing to do in this situation? If you do it for one, why not all? If you can suspend and put the brakes on, you should be able to do it across the board. And you would have way less friction and way less resistance from others if that were the case. So
because it looks like you're playing favorites and punishing arbitrarily here.
Absolutely, and
it doesn't look good.
And I know that one of those 6 is my own home parish of St. Barnabas, and I know that the Archdiocese knows that St. Barnabas is my home parish. So in many ways, it does feel like punishment, and I'm not going to mince words about that, but that's truly what it is. So yeah, would I want our decree suspended? Absolutely, and I'm pleading.
But it's not just you've never made it just about you. That's the thing.
Well, no, and that was that's why Save Rome of the West was founded, was because we did not want to just worry about ourselves. We were looking out for the greater good. There is more news to come revolving around Save Rome of the West and how our efforts are being heard not only in the St. Louis Archdiocese, but in other dioceses as well, and how we're going to respond to that. But that news is on the horizon. So just something to keep your eyes out for. So that being said, we're going to close out with a prayer in the name of the Father, Indeed. Son, and Holy Ghost. Amen.
Amen.
Gloria Patri et Filio et Spiritui Sancto, sic ut erat in principio, et nunc et semper in saecula saeculorum. Amen. God bless everyone. And if you, again, like Brody had said, if you did not get a suspension and you did actually file an appeal to Rome, you can reach out to us at Save Rome of the West. You can send an email to info@saveromeofthewest.com. It's shown up on the bottom of the screen there. Even if we haven't advised you at this point, up to this point at all, we still can go to bat for you, and we're more than willing to do so.
Absolutely.
Have a good evening, everyone, and take care.
Good night.